It's interesting, isn't it, these calls for Sunak to go for the jugular and to get personal on Sir Keir Starmer. It doesn't feel like he's necessarily landing any blows on no drama Starmer yet. But it's actually Wes Streeting who's given an absolutely own goal to the Conservatives over the weekend. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so this was an interview that the Shadow Health Secretary gave yesterday when he said that the spending plans that Labour have set out aren't the full sum of parts of Labour's plans on the economy and what they're going to be spending on public services. And, of course, the Tories then say this has let the cat out of the bag. Labour actually are planning a lot more tax rises than they're letting on. And, of course, if now Labour is saying that this manifesto doesn't represent their full spending, the Tories are now entitled to ask, well, what is?
I mean, all this sort of absolutely insisting that the working person won't be paying any more tax, income tax, VAT or national insurance, but they haven't ruled out a rise in things like council tax and lots of the stealth taxes and the wealth taxes as well. So that will be, what will be their big line of attack. Do you think that that could change things?
Well, I think that tax has featured more in this campaign than perhaps we might have thought of at some points, and it hasn't seemed to be sort of cutting through. But, of course, today is going to be Labour's big day on the economy. Rachel Reeves setting out plans for 650,000 new jobs under their Green Prosperity Plan. And I suspect all she's going to get asked today at that press conference is repeated questions about tax. And the Tories are saying the sums don't add up, and Labour will be on the back foot on an area that traditionally has been a weakness for them.
Interesting focus on Labour also from Reform today, who are launching not their manifesto, but what they want to call their social contract. I'm not sure why they're allergic to the word manifesto. Why have they chosen Wales?
Well, the answer is that Wales, of course, has been run by Labour there for 25 years now, since the advent of devolution in Cardiff Bay. And the Reform are saying this is a chance to kind of turn their guns on Keir Starmer. They've made a number of huge inroads into the Tory vote, really going after the Tories. So this is an attempt to try and get more Labour votes at the expense of Keir Starmer's party. But I think the key thing, of course, is that unlike, say, UKIP in 2015, which took votes sort of equally from Labour and the Tories, Reform much more hurting the Tories this time than Labour. And that's partly, of course, because people are judging it in Westminster rather than the Labour record in Wales.
The polling over the weekend, it was a devastating Survation MRP poll, which put the Tories down to 72 seats, I think. But it had Reform on 7 seats, which is the best polling I've seen yet in terms of seats. They'll be pleased with that.
Yes, they will. I mean, not least because David Bull, who's the deputy leader of Reform, said that last week on GB News that he was hoping for 4 seats. Obviously, 7 is pretty good. When we started this campaign, they thought they might get 1 if Clacton, if Farage stood. The fact that they're making sort of real inroads now, I think, shows their campaign is working, and they'll be delighted to be very bullish about their prospects going into this campaign.
What about the Lib Dems? Just looking at the papers this morning, and I see that they're Sir Ed Davies being urged to end the election buffoonery. I mean, I could have told you that on day one, but he seems absolutely wedded to this as a tactic.
Yes, I think it's very much sort of make light of him as a personality and try and sort of...
But he's such a serious character.
Yeah.
And he's got such a strong personal story. Do you think it's necessary?
I suppose traditionally the Lib Dems have always struggled for proper coverage, and they've been the third party and treated as such. So this is an attempt to get some easy sort of pictures and then tie that to a message. So, for instance, you're larking around in the water is a good way for him of bringing attention to sewage, which is something the Lib Dems have campaigned on to great effect the last 2 local elections. So there's method in the madness, and you see that in the polls, which show they're going to win 40 seats or so.
And positioning themselves as left of Labour, which is, fairly new for Lib Dems, really.
It's what they really do when Labour are sort of the party of government. So they did it very well in 2001 and 2005, particularly after the Iraq War. So they were able to win those kind of seats in those sort of university graduates at the time, places like Bristol and London, for instance. So I think that, this is something they're clearly returning to the tried and tested playbook. And they're also going to be trying to make gains in the West Country, hence their big announcement today on fuel duty.
OK, interesting. And that's on rural
fuel duty, exactly.
Okay. Thanks for that.